So thank you all for joining us for our August event. Appreciate you kind of spending an hour or so with us and hopefully learning a thing or two. My name is Tim Cady. I am one of the co-leads for the North Texas Tableau user group. I'm joined today by Joey and Brandi, who will introduce themselves in just a moment here. A little bit about our group before we get started. For those of you that are new to joining us, North Texas, but we meet when we are in person. We meet in the Plano area. We've been virtual for about a year and a half at this point. We do focus, primarily on Tableau stuff, but from time to time, we do kind of data agnostic topics, whether that be data engineering or some of the things we're going to talk about today, like design. If you're not already following us on LinkedIn or Twitter, there's a couple of our groups there that you can join. That helps you kind of stay up to date with any content we share, which, to be honest, we've been slacking about recently. But also that's where we post the invites for our meetings and our upcoming events. So that's the best place to stay in touch and get the latest info from our group. But with that, Joey, Brandi, you guys want to do kind of a quick introduction?
Yeah, Brandi, go ahead.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Brandi Locker. I work at Allstate as a senior exploratory analytics consultant. I've been using Tableau about 3 years, and I joined as co-lead of the group probably almost a year ago now.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Hey guys, Joey Ramos. I think we brought this, so this user group used to be dormant back in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I think we rebooted it. And for the first year and a half, maybe, I can't remember. First year and a half, maybe it was just me, and it was a lot of work. And then I met Tim and brought Tim on, and Tim's been great for the community. He's contributed a lot. And then within the last couple of years, we brought on a few additional committee members, Stephen and Brandi. Unfortunately, Stephen is moving on. So he will no longer be participating as a committee member of the North Texas Tableau user group. So we will be looking for maybe 1 or 2 additional individuals to join the committee here in the next couple of months. If you have any interest, please just send either Brandi, myself, or Tim a note on LinkedIn.
Yep, absolutely. So as we kind of get started with our agenda today, I just do want to throw one last thing out. As we're going through the presentations, if you have any questions, please throw those in the Q&A. Any kind of general chat can live in the chat section, but the Q&A helps us sort through any questions and make sure we're answering everybody's questions. So with that, Joey, do you want to kind of move us? Yes. Almost forgot. So Tableau Conference. So again, this year Tableau Conference is virtual and it is coming up quickly. So registration is now open. The conference will be November 9th through the 12th. So I think it's the second week of November, right? Yeah, perfect. Some really awesome content planned. I'm sure there's I know a couple of our community members who are speaking, so there's some really great stuff planned. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to anyone on our team. We'll do the best we can to answer. Or if there's, if we can't answer, we'll of course loop in someone from Tableau to help answer those. We hope that next year we'll be back in person, because for those of you that haven't been to a Tableau conference, it is an absolute blast. I want to stop short of saying it's a week-long party, but it's pretty dang close. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of good content, a lot of good networking. And that's still the case even with virtual environments. All right, we can take advantage of brain dates and Zoom sessions and these sort of things. So strongly encourage you to register, take a look at any of the content that's available. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to anyone on our team for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to add, I put the link to register in the chat. It only takes probably about 2 or 3 minutes to register. You know, I know we're not meeting in person this year, but there's still some really good content. You know, most of the sessions will be pre-recorded. So in some cases, they're actually a little bit better than what you would actually see in person. And another good thing is, since they're recorded, you have access to them, you know, 2 or 3 days after they already premiered. So you can actually go right now and watch the majority of some of these videos from 2019 and 2020 still on YouTube. So a lot of great content. Please take the time to register and try to watch some of the sessions.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. A lot of it will be pre-recorded. I do know there's quite a bit of new content coming out this year. I don't know a lot of specifics of that, but there will be, you know, some of the additional live events like devs on stage, and of course ironviz, these sort of things. So always worth tuning in for that. We'll move ahead to perfect. So again, for those of you that have joined us before, you might be familiar with this slide. Folks that have not, this will be new, of course. But for 2021, we put together a plan formed around the general life cycle of a dashboard project. So what we tried to cover is, you know, data literacy, engineering your data sources, functional options, calculations, those sort of things within a workbook. And for the next 2 months, we'll be talking about form and design before we wrap up the year with ultimately delivery and soft skills. And then hopefully in December, knock on wood, we are back together and can have a holiday party here locally. TBD on that, more info to come. But that's the premise of our kind of plan this year and our schedule. Like I said, this month and next month, we'll be talking about form and design. So our core team here, Joey and Brandi, have some good stuff lined up for you today. So with that, we can hop over to the agenda, talk about specifics here. So Joey's going to talk a little bit about design best practices. And that can range anywhere from, you know, color theory to viz placement, how you're constructing your views. I haven't seen Joey's presentation yet. I'm sure it's going to be great. But just to give you some ideas on what design best practices are. And then Brandi's going to follow that up with integrating Figma and Tableau. So if you haven't heard of Figma, that's the kind of new hot tool that people are partnering with Tableau. And the general concept is to add a level of user interface, right, to your views, to your dashboards. Right, some things that Tableau doesn't natively offer. So there's a lot of cool kind of outside the box options there. And then finally, we'll wrap up with what Joey's calling maybe the best Tableau tip ever. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And as always, at the end, we'll kind of open it up to Q&A and you know, any questions or if anyone's hiring, we leave that for the end as well.
So disclaimer real quick, maybe the best Tableau tip ever is very subjective. I think it's a great tip. You guys may not.
No, don't downsell it now. You got us hyped up. We're ready.
Like it.
So with that, Joey, do you want to kind of take it away?
All right. I think I lost you guys there for a second. You guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you back. You're good.
All right. Okay, so I'm Joey Ramos. So as Tim was mentioning, you know, throughout the year, we've sort of just had this natural progression of, you know, walking you through the life cycle of a dashboard. And for the next couple of months, we're going to talk about form and design. And so this month, I'm going to talk to you guys about design best practices. Okay, so when I think about design best practices, I think about, you know, what are my go-to resources, right? So my go-to resources that help me enhance my visualizations. The top left, you have visual vocabulary. The top right, you have the big book of dashboards. I actually have it right here. As well as the bottom left, visual analysis best practices, and then of course the Tableau community. So real quick, let's take a look at each of these real quick. If I click on visual vocabulary, it's actually out here on Tableau Public. So if you go to Tableau Public and just search visual vocabulary, you'll find it pretty easily. It was created, it says it was created 2018. I think it's a little bit older than that, but it was originally created by Andy Kriebel. And what I like about this resource is if I'm, depending on the type of analysis I want to sort of perform or conduct on the dashboard, I can go here and take a look at some of the visualizations that he recommends I could use, right? So for instance, if I wanted to show the correlation between two continuous measures, I could go to his correlation tab here and take a look at some of the types of visualizations that he recommends, right? Of course, you have your most common is going to be the scatter plot, right? Everybody pretty much understands how to use a scatter plot. When I mean understands how to use it, how to create one, and then the user really basically does understand how to interpret it. Similar to a scatter plot, you're going to have a bubble. You'll see a lot of heat maps, right? And then you have this line and column. If I want to show something that has a ranking on it, I can go to the ranking tab. And you have your basic horizontal ordered bar, ordered column, vertical, lollipop chart. So it gives you some pretty good examples of the type of visualizations you could use to demonstrate ranking, right? And then as well as distribution. Histogram, I use a lot of dot plots, change over time. Your line charts. Let's see, this fan chart's pretty cool. Area charts are pretty common. So, this is a really good resource to reference if you just need an idea of what type of viz you can use, depending on the type of analysis that you're conducting or that you want to show on your dashboard. So definitely recommend visual vocabulary. Let's go back. Also, we have the big book of dashboards. You can find this, not that I'm trying to plug Amazon, but I use Amazon pretty often. You can find this on Amazon for about $26, $27 to get the paperback. And it's really cool because it walks you through real life scenarios. And also the first chapter is basically the introduction really goes in depth about what makes a good visualization. And one thing that they discuss that we're going to review here is pre-attentive attributes, right? How to draw the individual's brain, right, or eyes to exactly what you want them to see, how to get that message across pretty easily. And then the bottom left, we have the visual analysis best practice, which is a cool little whiteboard that goes through, exactly what it says, some of the best practices to creating a nice viz. It's a pretty short white paper. You can go through it pretty quickly, but you just log in and download it. Yeah, and it's pretty easy to follow through this. It tells you to start with the question, walks you through a couple of different vizes and why it could be helpful to design the viz the way it is. Choose the right chart type, comparison and ranking, correlation. Again, you'll see a scatter plot. So it's another resource that you can go to. It's one of my go-tos, just so I can, get some inspiration, or if I just need a refresher, I like to reference this document. So definitely recommend it as a resource. And then last but not least, the Tableau community, there are hundreds, thousands of individuals out there with blogs, with social media accounts that are always posting helpful tips. We're going to walk through some of those individuals today, some of those couple of blogs, also reference a video by Chantilly that she created a couple of years ago at last year, I think, in Tableau Conference 2020. So yeah, I don't know if there's a few other authors that Brandi and Tim want to recommend, but definitely if you just go out on social media and just do #DataFam, you'll see some of the top authors out there, and I encourage you to follow them because they have some really helpful tips and tricks. Okay, and then we'll share this workbook after the meeting, but then again, visual vocabulary, basically what it's trying to tell you to do is keep it simple, limit your dashboard to no more than 4 vises, answer a specific question, less is more. The big book of dashboards, again, real world scenarios, pre-attentive attributes, which visualization allows us to interpret large volumes of data instantly. Design best practices from good to great. Be patient, attention to detail, start with questions, and make sure your dashboard has a specific purpose. And then, of course, the Tableau community, from blogs to social media posts. There's an abundance of resources out there for you guys. Just all you have to do is go out there and use Google and start searching. All right.
And Joey, just to chime in quickly, Brandi just shared in the chat, and I echo, Storytelling with Data by Cole Knaflick as another great resource. While in and of itself, it's not a design kind of best practices, book, the way she leverages data in the storytelling process, right, kind of lends directly to clean design and, very concise analysis. So definitely another good resource.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, I looked at probably about 4 or 5 different, maybe even 6 different presentations, resources, putting this presentation together. And they all have common themes. And one thing that you brought up just now was keep it clean, right? That is something that's common between a really good visualization is keep it simple and keep it clean. And that's something that we're going to demonstrate in this presentation. Okay. So when preparing for this presentation, Tim and Brandi were helping me out a little bit, and Tim was like, hey, you should really reference this blog by the Fleur-Lodge twins, a little design makes a world of difference. And if you guys aren't familiar with these gentlemen here, these brothers, they have a blog out there where they have a lot of great content. I don't know where they find the time to do it. Not only are they, viz whizzes, but their ability to communicate it is incredible, right? And this isn't working. It's not allowing me to scroll down, so I'll skip over to the browser. But, the hardest thing for me sometimes is to communicate to an audience, best practices, But these guys, I don't know how they do it, but they do such a great job of documenting it and communicating, you know, what they've learned to the community. So definitely very thankful for this blog. I highly recommend that you guys bookmark it and check it out, because they produce a lot of good content. So this one that Tim recommended was "A Little Design Makes a World of Difference." And as I was scrolling through it, you can see that anything hyperlinked here is, hey, it's a call out, go check out another blog or go check out another video, right? And so as I'm going through this, he does say, hey, simple steps for a better design workbook. And this is something I actually read last year. And so it's actually a prequel to this. And let's take a look at that first. So what he's done here for us is he's documented, 26 simple steps for better design. And I'm not going to go through all 26 steps, but the URL is in this workbook. I highly recommend that you just take the time. It's a 10-minute read, but titles, grid lines, he just goes through to talks about 26 very simple steps to enhance your business, and highly recommend you go through this. We're gonna touch on a few of these. So this is sort of the prequel, and then this would be the sequel to that. A Little Design Makes a World of Difference. And then here he's walking you through 10 different ways to improve your business, scatter plot design. We're going to take a look at this later. How to enhance a bar chart. He's got 3 different ways to enhance your bar chart design: 1, 2, and 3. Dashboard layout, which we're definitely going to discuss here in a little bit. It's another common thing through all these resources is one of the most important things is the layout of your dashboard. So we'll walk through that. Some map designs, another line chart design. So if you guys please take the time to go through these 2 blogs. I have them again in the workbook, but this one, big numbers, bands, big angry numbers, those are very helpful. We're going to walk through that. But again, a great resource for you guys to go to and read up on, so that you guys can potentially enhance your data viz. Okay. And then another resource that I would really like to reference is, I'm not sure, I think it's on this page here on the prequel here. He recommends to go check out Chantilly's video. He actually recommends a few different resources, but somewhere in here he says, hey, go take a look at a recording from Tableau Conference that Chantilly did. And I watched this a few different times, and every time I watch it, I find something new. But basically what it's going to do is design secrets for a non-designer. She walks you through the process elements for the purpose, the flow, the type of never say that word, color and art. Basically just sort of walks you through the whole process. Very helpful resource, and we'll touch upon a few of the different techniques, methodologies that Chantilly uses, and she presents in her recording here. So again, these are in the workbook here. Okay, I see there's a few mentions in the chat there. Tim, is there any questions? Or are there any questions?
Everyone's pretty much agreeing that Chantilly is awesome.
Okay, yeah. It's not hard to agree on that, right?
Right.
Yeah, so basically I did some research, and what I wanted to do was, you can't present everything, you can't review everything, it's impossible because there's so many resources out there, so much information, but basically what I wanted to do was touch on, 5 things that I wanted to pass on to you guys, right? So the first thing we're going to take a look at here is layout. And then we're going to take a look at bands and then pre-attentive attributes, titles, and then finish it with tool tips. You know, like I said, those resources have a lot of great information, a lot of great tips, but you know, today I just want to pass, you know, 5 things on to you guys, and hopefully you guys can walk away with this, and or at least walk away with one, learning something new and one new technique that you can add to your dashboards. All right. So the first thing, let me go ahead and go. The first thing I want to talk about is the dashboard layout, right? So as you can see at the very bottom on the footer, 90% of my dashboards are going to start with A4 landscape, and I will always have a header and a footer. And I will always use layout containers. Very rarely do I float any visualizations. If I do float something, I will typically float a container that has some parameters or filter. That's basically the only thing I'm ever going to float on top of a dashboard. Reading through some of the resources and some of the blogs, it's, you know, like for instance, the Flair-Rogers twins blog, the Kevin's blog, he does something very similar. He has a header and a footer. And the purpose of the header here is just to put your title, to have a logo. In some cases up here at the top right, I will have a collapsible container that has a filter or has my filters, or maybe I'll have an icon up here, an info icon that someone can click on to get more information about the dashboard, maybe how to use the dashboard. But to demonstrate how easy it is to create this, show you real quick how I start. This stuck here. There you go. All right, so pretty simple. Walk you through real quick. Just go to dashboard. I select A4 landscape. I'm always going to use layout containers. Layout containers make it really easy for you to organize your dashboard, right? So I always start with the vertical layout container. Then I'll do a horizontal for my header. Drag over text. I typically always use just the Tableau font. Maybe a Tableau medium here. Right, do that. Maybe has some subtext here with the additional information about the dashboard. Indent that a little bit. Pretty simple. And then what I'll always do is come over here. I'll add an icon here, typically my image, right? So if you're working your organization, just go ahead and just download your image and put your organization's image at the top right. And then I will. So another great thing about these layout containers is I can edit the height and the width. So I want to edit the height, I typically just do 80. That's my. And then I like to add a line here. So I just do drag over a blank object, edit the height to 10. Go to my layout, select a color. Very simple. And then what I'll also do down here is put another horizontal container. And then I'll put another blank below that. Actually, let's put it there. Let's edit the height. Added a blue color. Sorry, guys. Did this out of order here. I'll get it eventually. There we go. So basically, using the layout containers, I can create a header, a footer, and then add my image. So basically, that's how I start all my dashboards. So pretty simple there. Any questions? Okay. All right, got a little lost there. There you go. So pretty simple. All right, so the next thing, when you look at some of these resources in the book of dashboards, and then Chantilly's presentation, and of course, Kevin's blog, they talk about bands, right? It's big S numbers. Basically, it's a high level aggregation or aggregated summary of the dashboard. I always have these bands at the very top of the, I would say probably about 80% of my dashboards, I'm going to have a band, right? It's just a very high level summary. In this case, it's pretty simple, right? You just drag over a horizontal layout container. And then what I've done here is, if I go take a look at this worksheet, I just go grab my cells, drag it to text. I come in here, I format it, size 24. I'll put what measure is, what metric is actually being measured here. So in this case, it's sales, and then it's just year to date, right? So pretty simple. I created 4 of them. One for units sold, one for profit margin, and just add those to the horizontal container, and just did a did the distribution evenly, and that's it. So it's just a very cool, very high level summary that I can put at the very top there, so that the user has everything aggregated, right? So sales year to date, units sold year to date, profit year to date, and profit margin year to date. Any questions? All right.
Hey,
So,
Joe, we do have one question in the chat.
Yep.
Do you always have to start from scratch?
No, in a lot of cases, I already have a template, right? You can create a couple of templates, and yeah, I very rarely do I start from scratch. It's probably why I was having such an issue. But yeah, you can just reuse templates. Good question. All right, so another cool topic here is, in the big book of dashboards, like I said, there is one of the very first chapters here is about, it's called Data Visualization, a Primer, and it talks about common chart types, and it talks about colors, and it also talks about pre-attentive attributes, right? And like it says at the very bottom, pre-attentive attributes, things our brains process in milliseconds before we pay attention to everything else, right? There's a lot of information on a dashboard, or potentially there is, right? And so what I want to do is highlight, in this case, if you're looking at this viz here, where I have category, and then I have my cells here, I'm highlighting the top category, in this case by cells, in this case it's technology, right? It's a pretty simple technique. Same thing here, I'm highlighting West, because West is ranked first when it comes to the amount of sales for year to date. So I don't use a whole lot of different colors. I think most of my dashboards you'll probably only see 1 or 2. I'm either highlighting you know, what's number one, or I'm highlighting what's above goal. Very rarely do I ever highlight what's below goal. I won't do both above and below. I'll do one or the other. I try to be positive and highlight successes. I don't like highlighting, you know, the negatives, right? So if, for instance, you know, my goal here is 100,000, you know, in sales, these two bars would potentially be a positive color, right? Same thing here. If I was doing 100,000, this one would only be, West would only be, you know, colored in that positive color. So typically I just want to highlight either what's first in order as far as ranking based off the metric, or I want to highlight, you know, what's above a certain threshold. I didn't know, Tim, I know Tim's real big on color. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything there or.
No, just echo kind of what you said is, you know, a lot of the times you'll get stakeholder requirements that say, hey, I want to, you know, red, yellow, green, red, amber, green, that sort of thing. I'm also a big proponent of, right, highlighting what's important, right? If you're coloring everything and you know, saying everything's important, then, you know, what you're really saying is nothing's important. You have nothing that's more important than anything else if you have color all over the place. So really zeroing in on what it is you want to focus on, like you have there, you know, that quick note you have at the bottom, the pre-attentive attribute, and making sure you're using color there as opposed to all over the place. I'm also, you know, big fan of kind of the muted grays until we need to draw attention.
Yeah, no, well said. Thank you. Yeah, and so real quick, you know, it's pretty easy to create something like this. All I did, the key here is this rank metric. I have a parameter in this, don't worry about that. You could just, whatever measure that's over here on your columns, right? Whatever you're measuring here on your bars, just put it here in your rank unique and then just do descending. What that's gonna do, and then make sure you convert this to discrete. And then you can drag it over on your rows at the very, you know, before your category. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to sort based off this measure, whatever measure this is, it's going to sort it in order, descending order, right? So in this case, sales of 138, technology is the #1 category. And then I can just hide that. And then as well, what I can do is I created another calculation, highlight best performer. And I just said, hey, if my rank metric, which is this, equals 1, then put a 1, else 0. And then I can just drag that over to color. And then just go edit my colors. And hey, what's #1? I want it to be a blue, and then a muted gray for all others. So it's pretty simple. Again, this workbook will be shared with you guys, and you guys can take a look at you know, how I create it. You guys can reverse engineer it. But yeah, I typically just like to use 1 or 2 colors, and then one's typically a muted color, and the other one I'm just trying to highlight what I want you guys to be aware of. All right. If there's no questions there. So another thing is titles, right? So if you look at the bottom there at the header or at the footer, you know, this is your opportunity to help the user understand what they're looking at. So anytime I present a new dashboard to a new audience, or a dashboard to a new audience, the first thing someone will ask is, hey, so what am I looking at here? If I don't do a good enough job putting enough descriptors or putting a description on a dashboard, that's going to be a question, right? Is, you know, what am I looking at? And so it's pretty simple. You know, just come in here. I typically format my titles to be Tableau Book 12. And I can just come in here and just say, you know, maybe year-to-date sales by category, right? And then maybe if I have a filter on here, a filter action, I can say, category to filter. It's pretty simple, right? And then come in here, I'll just do the quick use a filter. And so, hey, you're looking at year-to-date sales by category. And then I can click here, hey, click a category to filter. And it's going to filter the rest of the dashboard. So, you know, I've used the title here to tell the user what they're looking at, as well as, hey, a little call to action here, right? Like if you want to filter the dashboard, you can just click the category. So pretty simple. So yeah, you guys make sure you utilize these titles to help the user understand what they're looking at. All right. And the final thing here I want to review with you guys is tool tips, right? So you have one or two options, right? Either go in and take the time to format your tooltips or turn them off. Don't do this. This is sloppy, right? And going back to the Tableau white paper, you know, just be patient, take your time to go in and format your tooltips, because, you know, as you can see at the bottom, tooltips, you can hover over, discover more information. You know, these are like little Easter eggs, right? You can come in here and you can say, hey, technology, sales 138,000. It represents 38% of total sales. Or in a lot of cases, I'll put here, you know, up, you know, 24% from prior year, right? So the individual can hover to get more information about the visualization. So take the time to go in and format your tooltips, because it will really take your visualization to the next level. Or just turn them off. Real simple. Go in here. Click everything. And that's it. Just turn them off.
So I want to make a quick note of one of the other things you just turned off is those command buttons. Not a design thing, but by default, every viz is going to have command buttons turned on. And what those are is if a user selects something, if you click on one of your bars there, you see it gives any user the ability to keep only, exclude, create a group, etc., a set. Not a good practice. I found that, right, it leaves you open to, you know, a user coming in here and clicking on something they're not realizing they're clicking on, and all of a sudden you're missing a dimension, or we only have West for some reason in the view. And, you know, it's just a good practice to shut those off by default, or whenever you think of it, really. But, you know, not a good habit to leave those on. You'll have things mysteriously start breaking.
Yep. No, I completely agree with you. Thanks for that. Yeah, and so one last thing I want to just sort of focus on here is, you notice how everything is sort of cluttered together. This viz sort of runs on top of this viz, and these two are pretty close to each other. Another good thing about using layout containers is if I go select this layout container, I'm going to utilize this outer padding. Real simple. I'll come in here. Maybe I'll do this 25. And what that's going to do is it's going to create white space. White space is okay. I encourage it. Okay. And what it's going to do now is sort of put a little more spacing between my bands up here, a little bit more spacing between these two and these two. So now what I'll do is I'll come in here, do the same thing here. You know, now it sort of spaces everything out a little bit more. feel free to, to just sort of mess with it and play with it and figure out, what works for you. But that's another advantage to using layout containers. All right. So yeah, if you look at a lot of my data vises, my dashboards, this is probably what you're going to get, the majority of the time. I know that some of those white papers, Tableau is real big on the data viz best practices to limit your dashboards to 2 or 3, no more than 3 visualizations. The other resources that I took a look at, they didn't mention anything like that. I typically have a banner with probably 3 or 4 data vises below it. So just be careful with the clutter. All right. If there's no more questions, we can pass it off to Brandi.
All right, sounds good. I'm gonna steal the screen from you.
We can see it.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'm gonna be going over Figma, and I'm gonna go through it pretty quickly. So I'd say, don't bother trying to like follow along in Figma or anything, just unless you're already using it and comfortable with it. But for the most part, just kind of like sit back and relax, and we'll have the session recorded and posted for you guys. And I'm gonna share some other resources as well. This is meant to be just kind of like a high level and probably pretty quick look at some of the key components to like really get you started. But first of all, Figma is, it's a web-based software that is primarily marketed toward like web designers. It's a prototyping tool, and pretty much any training I've found on it so far, I haven't done extensive looking throughout the Figma community. It's not quite as robust as Tableau's community, but it's coming along. There's some really great content out there. Well, I say it's probably very robust for web designers, just not for the Tableau folks yet. But any training I've seen, it's been like, oh, how to prototype an app for your phone. So that's actually pretty cool though, if you're interested in it. So this is what the drafts, actually the recents page looks like over here. So when you're, you have your account open, you may not have anything if you don't have any creations yet. And this is kind of like all your drafts. Basically, it's kind of like a folder where a project can be stored. And I'm going to jump into just the interface. And so this is a page within a draft. And then I've just renamed it, up here, it would normally say like draft 1 or something like that. And so you can give it a unique name. And just kind of a blank start here. Look at the top little toolbar. This is your main menu. This is how you go back to your files to see this page. And there's a lot of other things in here, like, placing images, and there's a ton of stuff. I actually haven't explored this menu a whole lot, so I'm not going to try to embarrass myself on that today. But here is a move and scale tool. You'll primarily be using move. This is a frame versus slice. I've actually never used slice, so I need to explore what that is, but I use frames a ton and they're very helpful. And this is a shape tool. And we'll go through a couple of these things as well. Pen, pencil, one's kind of like connecting dots, and the other is more of a free form pen style or pencil. And then text boxes and hand tool and adding comments. So I actually don't ever use those personally, but probably should. Coming back to the actual interface, I do not want a text box. Over here on the right, you'll see design, prototype, inspect. Design is where you'll spend most of your time. Prototype is where you can actually design a creation in here and add animations to it, and you can preview what that looks like in the prototype pane over here. And inspect is if you want to pull any like underlying code, but that's probably more primarily if you're designing for the web. So what are the uses for Figma? Like I mentioned, in our cases as Tableau developers, primarily for wireframing and prototyping. And so if you've got a new dashboard request, instead of going through 12 iterations in Tableau and really like banging your head against the wall and getting calculations right just for something that may not work out, you can do a quick mock-up in Figma, and you can share that with users. If your company is willing to splurge on the premium package, that's awesome, and I'm jealous. I just have a free account, and then I can export an image, and I can just send them a picture of what the dashboard will look like. And then you can actually, Lindsay Betzenville, who is featured, joined us last month in our tug, has a YouTube channel on it. She's got a handful of videos up right now, one about text, about using frames, so definitely check this out. We'll put these links in the chat momentarily. But here you can see where she's done a prototype of a dashboard, and you can actually see, I don't know if this is going to work very well streaming for you guys right now, but she actually has animations embedded in this prototype. And so it's pretty awesome if you want to get that adventurous with it. I'm not that advanced yet, so I don't claim to be, but I use it for pretty basic wireframing. You can also use it for Tableau backgrounds. A lot of the, particularly just like artistic images you'll see on Tableau Public, many of them are designed in something like Figma or maybe Adobe Illustrator, things like that. You can also use it to make icons. And so if you just really can't find what you're looking for, you can draw your own. And it's also good for, Tableau Public, and then I think Server as well. Your options are limited. So as far as what fonts will actually show up correctly. And one way around that is if there's a font you want to use that's not supported by Tableau Public or even Tableau Server, you can create an image with your text and then put that image on your dashboard. So that's a fun way to just kind of work around that. And then let me see, I'm going to show you a couple of things. So miscellaneous uses here. All right, so very quick, simple, bare bones wireframe. I'd actually add more to this, like, maybe give these little charts a header or something like that. But, just kind of showing your business partner, customer, what have you, like this is where your title is going to be. We can put your logo at the top right. We'll have bands for maybe sales and profit and returns and that kind of thing. And then you can just, trend it out, or it'll just, a lot of times people just want to see it first before they, you can try to describe it to them all you want, but they probably want to see a visual. So this is one way to do that. And then for icons, this is something that in Lindsay's YouTube channel, she pointed out that makes a lot of sense to me. If you want to make your own icon, you can actually use frames, and we'll talk about this in a moment, to keep the icon sizing consistent. And so, if I was to just freehand a funnel or magnifying glass, all of these components that I've created in here, you might have one that's 50 by 50 pixels, another it's 100 by 150 pixels. You might have all sorts of different sizes. Using a frame is one way to keep them all to scale with each other. That way, whenever you put them in your dashboard, it'll be consistent sizing, and you won't have to really fight it so much. It'll be a little bit easier for you. And I've actually used it for silly personal purposes, like designing how I want to have my living room laid out with an area rug, or I've even used them for creating like save the date cards that, I just save a picture of and send digitally. So you can just really go crazy with having fun in Figma. I'm going to come back to this blank page, and then we'll dive into some of those other components that I just mentioned. So on here, I'm going to start with the shape tool. This is probably what you'll use more often than anything else. Okay, so click on the shape tool, click rectangle, and then just click and drag. If you want to, let's see, there is an ellipse tool here. And so this will give you, you can do an oval, all sorts of sizes. If you're trying to do a circle, but I almost got it perfect, but not quite. So if you're trying to get just a perfect circle in there, select your ellipse. And this time I'm going to hold down Shift while I click. And that keeps it same width and height. And that way you don't have to try to type in or go back and forth. And then I'm going to go back to using rectangle. And with this, I'm just going to quickly go through what these do. These are all alignment components. It makes more sense if I have a couple of views. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit by doing Control and then adjusting with my mouse wheel. You can also do plus key, minus key. Let me do a couple more examples and this will make more sense. Okay, so if I'm zoomed way out and I've got multiple items on our canvas here, I can do Shift 1 to zoom into all of them. Or If I'm zoomed out and all over the place and I want to zoom into this view, I can do Shift 2 to see that individual component fit to the page size. And let's see, so this is XY is just the position. So it's just like in Tableau. You can adjust it. It's just a position on the screen. And that can be useful if you want to get it just pixel perfect. And there's really no constraint here on how far you can zoom in or out. I mean, you can, scrolling up and down, let me click and scroll up and down. I mean, you can zoom into pixels and you can zoom out. It's just as far as you want to go. Let's see, so width and height, pretty self-explanatory. This is angle, you can type it in here, or you can, I'm doing Control Z when I go back and forth. Another way to do an angle without typing it is just over here, you'll see the little selections. If you go just a little bit past your shape, you'll see the cursor change to a little arc, and then you can click it and drag it around to get it how you want it to be. And the thing you probably hear most about Figma and see most uses of is rounded corners. So that's the big fad right now. You can type it in here, say 40. If and that'll do all 4 corners matching, or you can do individual corners. And so if you click this little button, you can click for independent corners, and you can, choose one of them to be an extreme angle or, whatever, what have you. Quicker way to do that, if you don't want to type it all out, is leave that all consistent. Look at this little dot that appears, and then you can just drag it in. All right, and then coming back through here, layers, this is more obvious if you have an actual picture to look at, so I'm not going to spend too much time in it. Basically, just if you want to insert an image and just kind of toggle through what might be ideal for your picture. This is where you can change the fill color. So same lingo as PowerPoint. So you can just pick colors to change it to, and you can choose the opacity here or here. And you can type in your hex code. You can change it to other codes if you want. And let's see, you can do a solid, you can do linear, you can adjust, you can do all sorts of stuff. You can just really go crazy with this. And I'm not going to spend, like I said, a lot of time. This is just showing you what's possible. Stroke is adding a border. And so if I click off, you can see I added a black border around this shape. If I click the shape again, I can adjust the border thickness. Let's see, I just want to make it 10. You can see much more noticeably now. You can change the stroke color here. Same concept. Type in hex codes, opacity, whatever you need to do. And to remove any of these elements, if you're just not liking the way it's turning out, you can hide them. So they're still there, but they're not visible, or you can remove them completely with this little plus sign, or minus sign. So to add the stroke, you come back to the plus and adjust as needed. I'm going to remove it. For effects, this is where you can add drop shadows, which are one of my favorite design elements. So if I click off, you can see that the drop shadow is just that little kind of blur gray behind the shape. To adjust that, you can click this little sun icon. I'm going to place the X at -4, so that brings it a little bit here to the left. You could go, -15 if you want, just make it much more obvious. Not a fan. And then you can adjust, like how blurry is it? Just for emphasis, so you can see what it's doing. And you can adjust the opacity of that as well. So you can make it darker if you want, or my 0 key doesn't work that great. There we go. And then after you were done editing, this is where you would export, and you can choose PNG, JPEG, whatever you need, and click export. So that's like the ultra basic, just to show you a couple more kind of things it can do, and then I'll show you how this applies and can be merged with Tableau. Frames. These are super helpful. Lindsay's got a video on them. I encourage you to watch that. Basically, let me zoom out here. All right, so instead of me trying to create, a square with all my stuff in it, a rectangle, I know my shapes, and just trying to so if we have this Let's just add a bunch of elements, a bunch of meaningless things here. If I wanted to move this whole thing, I would have to make sure I was just really selecting all of them. But if I ever missed and didn't quite get it, that was a bad example, then I would leave something behind. So you can do a group selection. That was just a right click after selecting the desired components and grouping. You can see what's happening over here in this left pane. So the group that we just created is group 1 right here. You can click this little caret and see what the components are. There's the polygon, the ellipse, and the rectangle, and you can rename this if you want to. So now this is all merged together as one component, or not merged, grouped. But an easier way to do this for designing your dashboards is just by using a frame. So if you come up here, click frame, and this is where it gets really cool. So a lot of these things, you could do this in PowerPoint. Like you can make a funnel icon in PowerPoint, and Ken and Kevin Flailage are a testament to what PowerPoint can do. I'm not on that level, and I don't have the patience to get on that level, to be honest. And so I do occasionally still use PowerPoint, particularly if it's, for an icon that maybe I want to leave for a teammate or something, and maybe they don't have Figma, then I'll leave in PowerPoint because most people are more familiar with it. But if I really want to go all out and just have the design suite to myself, I use Figma. But what a frame does, you can match exactly the sizing of this frame as you would your Tableau dashboard. So I want the size width to be 1200 and height to be 800. And then I'm going to hit Shift 2 to zoom into that one component, the frame. And let's see. So from here, I want to add a thing to create that. I just did a rectangle. Let me zoom out a little bit. So to do that little like sunburst thing, basically what I did, other than changing colors, I am not good at picking pretty yellows. Okay, you can double click this, and actually, I'm gonna get it resized a little bit so we can drag it in the frame. Now you'll see this is outside of the frame, and then you can drag it into the frame. Oh, you know what? I am lying to you guys. So if I drag it here, you're seeing it's visually in the frame, but it's not in the frame layer here. If you add an image directly in the frame, you'll see it appear in this. But you can, if you screw up like I did, you can always grab your original rectangle, drag it in the little pane on this side, and now it's part of this frame too. Get rid of that. And I'm going to make this larger. And basically what I want to do is rotate it. And if I want to have that fun sunburst effect, I can double click the shape, and then I can pick individual corners and then hit enter. And then I can just select it with left click and drag it around. But you'll notice what the frame does is it doesn't allow the visual to extend beyond the frame. So I can pull out of the frame like that, or I can place it back in. But that's a pretty cool way if you're, so if you're designing something like this, you don't have to worry about like making sure it cuts off at the perfect place on the rectangle. You can just kind of go freehand and hit Alt and click and drag. And then I can come up here, change my angle and kind of keep going with that route. And so frames are just really neat in that sense that you can really just kind of go nuts and not have to worry about what's extending beyond the border. Let me zoom out here. And so that's kind of, let me select frame 1, Shift 2. That's what I did here. So all of these objects are actually much larger than the frame itself, but whenever you export the frame, you're only going to see what we see here in this canvas. And then this one is just a shape overlay with a white fill, lowered opacity, so you can still see a bit of the background coming through. Masks are another really neat tool. And so you can use this for a ton of things, but one just kind of quick and easy example, zoom out a bit, is if you have an image and you want kind of this design where it's the circular image and you're, it's kind of like a way to do a cutout pretty much. So you can grab your shape, add an ellipse, shift, click and drag, position it where you want. And then I'm going to right click, send backward. And then I'm going to see, so if I move my cursor off, I'm not clicking right now, but you can see how that ellipse is still selected even though it's backward. I'm going to hold down shift and click this object, which is a group that I made earlier. And I'm going to go up here in the center and click use as mask. And so that's like a cool trick that we could use for creating tug invites, for example. Components are handy because, let me see. One way to kind of navigate around this interface, because if you just click and drag, you're just gonna be selecting things. So hold spacebar, and then you see a little hand appear, and then you can move around. A component is essentially, it's useful for whenever you have maybe like buttons in Tableau. So you could create one and then kind of copy and paste the component out, and then whatever changes you make this original one are going to affect the others. So I made these earlier. It was just, creating a rectangle, adding a text box on it, and then I guess I should do a text box I'm going to center that. And then basically what I did here was clicked create a component. And that's how you do that. And then to duplicate it, just Alt and click and drag. And you can do Control-C, Control-V to copy paste. There's a ton of different ways to do that here. But with the component, I'm going to come back to this one because it's prettier. If you wanted to change the colors of all your buttons, then all you have to do is just click on the original component, and you can tell it's the original because it's got the little diamond shape that's filled in versus the one that's not filled. The filled in one is your original component. And so you can see I'm done with component one. Component one right here is the label. And then that's how we're making the changes here. And another thing, like if you've got a block of text, I need to hurry, we are getting low on time. But quickly to scale text without having to, I've been doing this the hard way for so long and I just discovered this, but if you were right now to just like move this around, you'd have to kind of like resize your text according to however you want it to be. What we can actually do is change your cursor up here from move to scale, and it automatically takes care of that for you. So we're going to jump into designing the dashboard background, but does anyone have any questions up to this point? I know I'm going fast and covering a lot of things.
Just a quick one for context, Brandi. And you might be about to answer it, and you might have mentioned it at the beginning, and maybe I just missed it. But what generally, when you use Figma, are you using it to design individual elements or dashboard backgrounds, or both?
Yes, I do both. So I definitely, more recently, I've been designing a lot of my Tableau backgrounds with Figma. I used to do a lot of tiled layouts, and then I would add in padding, like Joe was just showing you guys, and I would actually have like a gray background and then a white view on top of it. And so that way it would kind of have borders that way, and I would work with padding. I've since come around to like rounding out my backgrounds and things like that. And so I do a lot of the background design in Figma, but then I also, like I was showing with the icons earlier, I do a lot of that type of stuff as well. So actually that segues pretty well into here. So if you guys follow me on Twitter or anything, I posted this viz recently. It was a Makeover Monday data set, pretty easy one if you just want to like jump in and get started somewhere. Basically, I should have had the other, let's show you in Tableau. So that's what the final product looks like here. This entire background is just an image. So if I were to take that off, you'd only have this chart here, which you can't see because it's white. But what you could do is if you wanted the flexibility to maybe move this text around within Tableau, you could make the background image, and then you could also make this text be a separately exported image that you'd float on top. And that way you'd have a little bit more flexibility instead of having to go back into Figma and re-download and things like that. So All of the above. I use it for a lot of things. So I'm going to quickly, with all the things that we just went through, show y'all how this dashboard kind of came about. And I cheated, so you guys wouldn't have to watch me in excruciating pain if I did this in front of everyone. But it just started with, nope, I'm already doing it again. Old habits die hard. I used to do the grouping technique. Now I do frames. So grab a frame, adjust my sizing. There goes my sticky 0 key again. 1200 width, 800 height. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And then I'm going to adjust my fill color. And I am lazy and don't know what that is. So I'm going to use this eyedropper actually and just grab the color here. And then that's good. Then for the next one, I'm just going to grab text. And for bring in text box, you can click and drag for the actual box size, or you could just click and place. All right, so there's my title, and I can adjust. Another cool thing about Figma is you're not limited to the drop-down options on your sizes. You can just pick whatever size you want. That was lucky. Okay, I'm gonna not risk it. And it's not the same font as I used up here. There's a ton of fonts in Figma, and I'm not gonna bother trying to get the right place because we are low on time. So for this next part, I actually just found, if anyone's seen Office Space, I might be using too old of a reference now, but pretty much just got an image from Office Space and then traced around it. So I used the pen tool and then just played connect the dots with my picture, hit enter, and then it creates a little image vector for you. So that's how this guy came to be. And then this was the little text bubble was created by using an ellipse and a polygon to make that little part, merge those two together, and then add a text box on top. And then I just grouped all of these components. So now that we have, oh, I grabbed the right thing. Now you can see it selected. I can move it into my frame. And I put a little footer at the bottom. So to do that, I'm just gonna grab another rectangle. And in my footer, you don't really have to be that careful because it's a frame. And I just use the background and then I just made it a little bit darker. And then I'll fill it in with text in Tableau. I do shift, actually, let me select it, shift 2. Now I'm a little bit more oriented. And, oops, let me zoom out. This was created just for the sake of me visualizing this in Figma. This was not in the actual image. This is what I created in Tableau, was a bar chart, but I did a quick mock-up of it in Figma just so I could kind of see where my placement was going to be for all the things. And it wasn't exact. I went back and forth a few times. But then to do this part, rectangle, and the kind of transparent look is actually just a white fill. And I think I set it to 80. It more or less looks different. What did I do? 20, opposite. Or inverse, whatever. So. There we are. And then rounded corners. And then I added a drop shadow. And I actually, in addition to the drop shadow with the darker gray background, I added an inner shadow with white to be the top, the right side and the top right. So that's how you get that kind of like 3D effect to this. And then to dump this into Tableau and wrap this whole thing up, I'm going to select the frame and go down here and click the plus button next to export. And I'm going to export the frame. Okay, and that will give you this image. So to come into Tableau, you've got your new dashboard, and this is where a couple of things can trip you up, but it's not really hard to, it's not hard to fix, is what I'm trying to say. On your layout, you want to make sure it's the same size. 1200, 800. And then you want to leave it tiled and bring in an image. And normally you'd have to like move it, from your downloads to a saved location. I'm going to cheat and use what I already had. And go ahead and fit in center. And now you'll notice that it still has this white background behind the image, and it's not quite where we want it to be. So I'm going to click my image, click layout on the left, and notice that outer padding. I'm going to lower that to 0 all around. And you'll notice there's still some left. That's because it's in a container, right? So we've got the image, double click it. Now your container selected in blue, and you'll notice the outer padding set to 8. I'm going to take all that out. And now it's fitted the way you need it to be. And so from here, this is where, it sounds like Joey's mostly team tiled. I'm kind of team hybrid. I do float a lot of containers and then put things in those. And then I also just float objects as well. And then depending on the dashboard, a lot of business cases actually do a lot of tile. So I like them all for different reasons. But in this case, I'm going to float the bar chart, write the title. And if anyone noticed, this is a design from, I think it was Kevin Fleerwich that did a little design blog. And it was one that Joey referenced earlier. So you can learn how to do the bar chart by going out and checking that blog out. And then the rest was designing the footer, which we won't really get into so much here. But that's pretty much it. It's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. That's a huge download of information, but I'm going to throw a bunch of links at you guys in the chat. And so you have resources to go and learn, and we'll have this recording up soon. But if anything I said maybe did not make sense, like this sentence, you can definitely check out some of Lindsay's work. And then if you've got LinkedIn Learning, I've got a good training in there. Not me, but I have a recommendation for good training in there. So any questions?
Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat, but great presentation. I've never used Figma before, so this is a great crash course. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks, Brandi, for that presentation. And then we'll go ahead and conclude today's meeting with the Tableau tip of the month. Share my screen. So going back to one of the blogs that we were reading about, Kevin's blog, he goes into depth here about how to enhance your scatter plot design. And what he's doing here is dual access with 2 different circle types, right? So if we go ahead and take a look at, this is what a regular scatter plot looks like, right? So if I go take a look at it, I've got my sales on columns, got my profit on the rows, right? We're going to see the relationship between sales and profit. I've got subcategory. So each of these are going to be a subcategory. And then I've got category on color, right? So here's anything that's technology related, office supplies related, and furniture related. And a regular bar scatter plot is what you can do is you go into colors, you make the opacity 50%. And then in most cases, you'll see individuals put a border, a black border, sometimes a gray border around it, right? And typically that's what you're going to see on the majority of individuals' dashboards. There's nothing wrong with this. I like it. It's quick, it's easy. But reading through his blog, he went ahead and he says that if you use a dual access, one dual access in its actual circle, and then the other one's automatic, which is just the outline, and you synchronize those axes and use the same, dimension on color, you can actually, instead of having a black border, you could use the same color as the border. And then if you just change the opacity of the filled circle to about 50%, then you'll get something that looks a little bit, I think it looks a little bit more sophisticated. I like it. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Basically, and I will go ahead and demonstrate it real quick because it's pretty easy. I'm just going to duplicate the regular the original scatter plot, and I'm going to change this back to automatic. So what you have now is you just have the circles, and let's make this 100%. So when you originally create a scatter plot, this is how it's going to show up. If you go ahead then and just drag over sales, right? Now you have two different vises here, right? We're going to have one for sales. Well, actually both for sales, same viz, not different, same viz, just on different axes here. So let's go ahead and do a dual access. Let's make sure we synchronize these, and let's hide this one. Okay, now we're just going to change one of these to a circle. Make sure that turn that border off, and then change the opacity on the circle to 50%. And then there you go. Right, so just by utilizing the dual access, he's able to create a border for that circle, and the border is the same color. So cool little trick here. Maybe you want to make this a little bit more opaque here. Maybe something like that. And if you stack them side by side, you know, I do think this is sort of a better looking visualization, and it's real simple. You can do the same thing with line charts. It's the same concept. Dual access. One is going to be just a line chart, and the other one here is going to be an area. And then you just change the opacity of the area. So this one's 15%, and pretty cool looking viz. And then again, with just a regular, this is a running total, but again, with another line chart that's just, you know, sum of sales by day, you can create something very similar. I think it's a little bit better looking than just a regular line chart. So cool little technique, you know, how to utilize dual access charts to enhance your visualizations. All right, so maybe you guys can start using that with on your dashboards.
Hey, Joey, one thing I discovered while you were preparing to present this is you can also use other shapes too. So you could do like squares, for example, or diamonds or what have you. So that's pretty cool.
Instead of the circles?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, I guess you would just go to
yeah, you hit that shape. Shapes.
We'd have to mess with, I guess you'd have to do the same shape here, right?
Yep. And then the other one on the other sales card, you set the other card to shapes as well.
There we go. Go back and change. Maybe square. Go back and change this. I don't know. I have to mess with it. But
yeah, put you on the spot, but
yeah, sorry. Very cool though. All right. All right, so if anyone doesn't have any more questions, does anybody want to make any announcements? If their organization is hiring, feel free to make that announcement now. If you're looking for a job, go ahead, and this is your opportunity to speak up. All right. If you're a little shy and you guys are hiring or looking for a job, please go ahead and send either myself, Tim, or Brandi a message on LinkedIn, and we'll see what we can do to help you out. All right. If there's no more questions, really appreciate you guys taking the time today to join us, and we'll see you guys next month. All right.